I got married less than half a month after knowing my blind date. We slept in separate rooms for 3 months after marriage, and he came knocking on the door in the middle of the night. His voice was hoarse. It's time to round off this house. 1. Marcus Perry and I had just gotten our license, and were driving home. The car suddenly stopped halfway through the journey. Marcus unbuckled his seatbelt and said, "Wait, I'm going to get some stuff." "What are you buying? Are you sick?" "No, just some necessities." I was the only one left in the car. My tense nerves relaxed, and I felt an unreal feeling that I was getting married. Marcus and I were introduced to each other by our elders, and met through a blind date. At the time, my aunt introduced him to me enthusiastically. He is handsome, his family is well off, and his parents are both high-ranking officials in the province. He's still in the system, a criminal police officer. If I didn't agree, my second aunt, third aunt, an aunt would come to introduce me the next day, and I would have no choice but to nod. When we met, the other person was just as my aunt had described, handsome, nearly 1.85 meters tall, with eyes as sharp as an eagle. But his brows were furrowed, looking fierce and serious, and he didn't dare to look up at him. The blind date ended after just a few words. I thought there was no chance, but 3 days later, my aunt called me and told me that the other party wanted to meet again. I frowned, somewhat reluctant to go, but when she thought of Marcus's ferocious face, she didn't dare to refuse, for fear that he would come to her. Decided to meet again and talk things out. The other party arranged the meeting at a cinema. When I got there, Marcus was already there. He was wearing a white shirt under a khaki windbreaker, and a pair of black leather shoes under his long, straight legs, giving him a bit of a British vibe. He wasn't as fierce as the last time we met. While queuing to get tickets, he lowered his head, and the distance between the two of them became very close, and there was a faint scent of shower gel lingering around them. "Would you like some popcorn and a Coke?" I shook my head, and just wanted to finish watching the movie quickly. While watching the movie, Marcus was very serious. He didn't say anything extra, and didn't make any other small movements. He was very honest. As the movie came to an end, I breathed a sigh of relief. When I came out, it was raining heavily outside, with lightning and thunder, and the wind was blowing with moisture. Marcus's car was parked just across the street, but it was still some distance away. I didn't expect it to rain heavily tonight when I went out. I was going to get wet anyway, so I simply put the bag on my head and prepared to rush out. Someone suddenly grabbed my wrist with great force, and the grip was so tight that it hurt. Marcus immediately let go of his hand when he realized it. "Feel sorry." He took off his coat and said, "Put this on your head. Let's go together." Marcus is tall and his coat is big, so it should be enough to cover 2 people. "Come a little closer." The 2 of them were very close, their skin rubbing from time to time, and her arms accidentally touched his hot chest, and then immediately withdrew. Half of Marcus' body was soaked, and his hair was wet and hitting his forehead a little messy. "Are you cold?" I shook my head. "Hurry up and wipe it with a towel, or you might catch a cold tomorrow." The car drove back home, and the rain gradually stopped. He unbuckled his seatbelt, pursed his lips, and forced a faint smile. "Thank you for today. Go back and take a bath to drive away the cold." I got out of the car, and the door next to me opened. "Do you have anything else to say?" "I have some free time this weekend. Would you like to go out for dinner together?" Just as she was about to open her mouth to refuse, she saw Marcus's sharp eyes and swallowed the words back. He nodded, which was considered as agreement. Before we could meet at the weekend, Marcus and I met again, because of an incident involving a student's parent maliciously beating someone. It happened somewhat unexpectedly, as I was on my way replying to someone's message. A parent with a fierce look suddenly rushed out with a stick in his hand. "Are you Mr. Ramirez?" I nodded, still not reacting. The stick hit him hard on the shoulder. "You beat my child into the hospital, and he now has a concussion." He groaned, fell down, opened his mouth, and the sound was stuck in his throat. I was a little confused. Normally, we treated those ancestors as national treasures, and could not beat or scold them. So how could they beat students? The parent was so angry that he was a little unconscious, and the second stick was about to fall on his stomach. Marcus appeared and kicked him away. He was wearing a police uniform and had a gloomy face. The parents were taken to the police station, and Marcus took me to the hospital. The injury was on the right shoulder. There was bruising and a large red and swollen area. It's nothing serious. I'll apply some medicine for you and prescribe some plaster for you later. Go back and apply it every day. Marcus frowned, his face gloomy. The nurse, who was stealing glances at Marcus, just now didn't dare to utter a word, and her hands were shaking as she applied the medicine. Gently, the hand guard was shaking like a sieve. I raised my head. His face didn't look any better, and he looked very fierce. A little helpless. Why don't you go out first? He glanced at me indifferently, nodded, turned around and closed the door. The school leaders called to express their condolences. Boss, I have suffered a work-related injury. I can't even raise my hand to write. Rest at home for a few days, and come back to work after you're healed. I had already felt very aggrieved when encountering this kind of thing, but when I heard that I could take a few days off and not have to go to work, my eyes brightened, and I felt a little more relaxed. In the corridor, Marcus stood straight, his arms folded across his chest, his thin lips tightly pursed, attracting many people's attention. But because the aura was too strong, no one dared to come forward. Thank you for showing up today. How come you showed up at such a timely moment? I just happened to be passing by to do some work. Just as I was about to go to bed at night, the phone screen lit up. Marcus sent a message. The investigation results are out. The injured child is a freshman in junior high school. His grades are not up to par and his family is poor. The teacher deliberately targeted him because he did not hand in his homework. He was punished in class. After school, he was called to the office and warned not to tell anyone. When the parents came home from get off work, they found that their child had fainted. They sent him to the hospital, and it was found that he had multiple injuries, including concussion. When the parents asked who did it, the students just made up a story about Mr. Ramirez. I took a look and felt mixed emotions. The teacher's ethics needs to be improved. I checked the time and sent a message. Are you still not off work yet? Get off, get ready to take a shower. Have a good rest. Good night. Good night. After spending more time with Marcus, I found that he was very polite in his speech and gave me a very gentlemanly feeling, except that he had a somewhat fierce temperament. If you marry someone like this, your married life should be pretty good. So half a month later, Marcus called and asked if I wanted to get married. I didn't hesitate for long before agreeing. Marcus carried a large paper box and threw it into the back seat. The name of a health supplement was written on it. I didn't think much about it. There was also a bag of fresh fruit on it, which was handed to me. When I opened it, I saw many purple and round lychees dripping with water. Peel one, put it in your mouth, take a light bite, the juice splashes, a sweet and mellow taste flows in your mouth, and your mood suddenly becomes relaxed. While eating, my appetite also increased and I ate more than a dozen in one go. I squinted my eyes, exclaiming how sweet the lychees were, and my liking for Marcus grew even more. The wedding room is a large flat with simple decoration. The furniture used are all of the best quality and look very textured. Marcus carried a box of things into the bedroom. The bedroom door was slightly open, and the bright red sheets on the bed could be vaguely seen, forming a sharp contrast with the white walls. I was in a daze the whole morning, but now I am suddenly awake. Tonight is my wedding night. Thinking of this, my heart almost jumped out. He looked a little uncomfortable, and his face was so red that it almost burned. Before this, I had only been in relationships with paper lovers and had never held hands with a boy in real life. Marcus came out of the room, glanced at me, frowned, and asked, "Are you feeling unwell?" I shook my head and said guiltily, "It's a bit hot." I opened the refrigerator door and asked him, "What do you want to eat for lunch?" He unbuttoned his shirt and rolled up his sleeves, revealing his muscular arms. Weiwei was a little surprised. "You can cook." I went to Marcus's house before, and they had a special aunt who cooked suzhou dishes, which tasted amazing. He nodded and smiled. When I was studying abroad, food outside was too expensive, so I usually cooked at home. Marcus was cooking in the kitchen, and I was busy sorting clothes in my room. Opening the wardrobe, I saw skirts hanging high, and a row of new sets of underwear below. The labels are not removed. It seems they were prepared in advance. He bent down to take out the clothes from the suitcase and found that the box next to it was open. It was the box he had just brought back from the drugstore. The tape was opened, and when I opened it, I saw a box of family planning products in various flavors. Her face instantly turned red, and when she looked up, she saw a new, unopened box on the bedside table, as if it had been specially prepared for tonight. It's hot now, and I sweat easily when I move a little. My hair is a little sticky, and I don't want Marcus to see me so messy. I took a set of clothes, went into the bathroom, and took a quick shower. I bent down and smelled it. It smelled very refreshing. When he came out, Marcus just opened the kitchen door, and a fresh fragrance immediately floated into the living room. His eyes stayed on me for a moment, then immediately retracted. "Have you taken a shower?" "Yeah, it's too hot." I was sweating just now. On the table were sea basin vinegar, braised pork ribs and yam, vegetable and tofu soup, and a small dish of pickled mustard tuber. Seeing this, I swallowed and couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. "Marcus, you are amazing. You are like a Michelin chef. Delicious, delicious." I originally wanted to be reserved in front of him for a while, but the food was so delicious that I couldn't help but eat an extra bowl of rice. 2. At noon, Marcus received a temporary task and left in a hurry. I breathed a sigh of relief and felt more comfortable being alone at home. I slept until the afternoon and saw a message from him on my phone. "Sorry, I won't be home for dinner tonight." I went downstairs in my slippers to buy some food at the convenience store, and then read a book and watched a movie. I looked up at the clock, and it was almost 10 o'clock. I frowned and sent a message, but no one replied. Probably too busy. I spent my wedding night alone. Marcus called me and told me that he would not be back for a week. There was new progress in the case, so he drove to the nearby city at night. I expressed my understanding. Before I got married, my parents told me that Marcus's job was special, and I should be more understanding and tolerant. These days I have been eating, sleeping, and playing with my phone alone, and I almost forgot that I am a married woman. I came back from get off work in the afternoon, carrying a bag of oranges back to the community. On the way, I met a neighbor whom I had just met a few days ago. He is a university professor, with an outstanding temperament and a gentle smile. In the past, he was the type I liked. "Teacher Ramirez is off duty." I nodded. "Which middle school are you in?" I smiled and told the name of my middle school. What a coincidence. My nephew also goes to school there. The educational environment is pretty good. The two of them were chatting idly, and when they were about to close the shop, they realized they had forgotten to buy cold medicine. I forgot to close the window before going to bed last night. It was cold at night, and I kicked off the quilt. I had a stuffy nose when I woke up. Harold Morgan mentioned that he had some cold medicine and enthusiastically brought over 2 boxes. I felt a little embarrassed and took a few oranges from the bag and gave them to him. After taking a shower, I was about to go to the living room to get a glass of water and take my medicine when the door handle suddenly turned. My heart tightened. As a single woman living at home, I felt a little panicked. The door opened, and it was Marcus. He stood at the entrance changing his shoes, which were stained with mud, his clothes were wrinkled, and he seemed to be covered with fatigue. With a sigh of relief, he asked with concern, "Have you eaten?" His voice was hoarse. "I just ate outside." Marcus stared at me with dark eyes. I looked down. "You can wear whatever you want when you are alone at home. There is a creamy white ice silk suspender skirt in the closet. The fabric is very comfortable. It hangs loosely on the body and looks shaky. The skirt fits the waistline, and most importantly, there is no clothes underneath." I took a deep breath and walked into the room without changing my expression. I closed the door and quickly changed into long-sleeved shirt and long pants. Although it was not as comfortable as before, I felt very safe. When I came out, he was drinking water, and when our eyes met, there seemed to be something else in his eyes. I lowered my head in panic, walked to the sofa and sat down, holding a pillow in my arms. "I'm going to take a shower." The voice was filled with a hint of smile. Just as I was daydreaming, a man's voice came from above my head. I said perfunctorily. There was a sound of water dripping from the bathroom. 8 minutes later, the bathroom door opened. Marcus was wearing a loose white short-sleeved shirt and black shorts. He had a slender figure, and his exposed arms and calves had thin and neat lines. He walked to the refrigerator, got a bottle of water, tilted his head back and drank it all in one gulp, his Adam's apple rolling. "Aren't you going to bed?" His hair was not dry yet, sticking wetly to his forehead, and there seemed to be moisture in his black eyes as he looked at me intently. I felt a little uncomfortable being stared at by him, and my face suddenly felt hot. "It's too early. I want to watch some more TV." Marcus glanced at me, walked calmly to the entrance and pressed the switch. The lights were turned off, and the living room suddenly fell into darkness. The only light came from the TV. The sofa sank, and the two people's legs were close together, surrounded by the strong hormonal scent of a mature man. His whole body was tense, his palms were sweating from nervousness, and he quietly moved to the side. He suddenly turned around, grabbed me into his arms, and held me tightly around his shoulders with his strong arms. I turned my neck stiffly and said in a low voice, "Do you want to go back to your room and rest for a while?" When he just came back, there was a dark circle under his eyes and blue stubble on his chin, and he looked very haggard. Marcus shook his head slowly. "I'll watch TV with you for a while." The living room fell silent again. I chose a disaster movie. I found it hard to get into the mood at first, but the more I watched it, the more I became fascinated. When the movie ended, the sound of a man's even breathing could be heard next to me. I pushed him gently and whispered, "Marcus." Before I could finish my words, the person next to me opened his eyes alertly and grabbed my arm. In the dark night, the man's eyes were cold, his eyebrows were tightly knitted together, and his aura was very fierce. "Pain." Marcus paused, then immediately let go. My eyes widened in fear, and I shrank to the side. After realizing that he overreacted, Marcus immediately apologized. "Sorry, it was a stress reaction." People who work in this field will quickly become alert at the slightest sign of trouble around them. Although I understand, I still feel a little uncomfortable. If the force just now had been a little stronger, I wouldn't even be able to lift a piece of chalk tomorrow. Still feeling scared, I patted my chest. He said dryly, "It's okay. I'll be more careful next time." I could see that he was a little helpless and felt a little bit reluctant. I couldn't help but add, "Don't think too much. It's really okay. Go to sleep quickly." As he spoke, he yawned and walked into the room. I looked back and saw that Marcus hadn't caught up. I lay down and covered myself with the quilt. The door to the room was pushed open, and my body tensed up slightly. Marcus held a glass of milk and said softly, "Mom said that you need to drink a glass of hot milk before going to bed, so that you can fall asleep." When I took it, I whispered thank you. Under Marcus's gaze, I drank the entire glass of milk in silence. I turned off the lights. He reached over, turned off the light, and lay down. I moved to the side, almost close to the bed. The moonlight shines dimly into the bedroom through the thin curtains. The only sound in the room was the sound of even breathing. Marcus rolled over. My breath hitched. "Does your hand still hurt?" I shook my head, my voice a little stiff. "No, it doesn't hurt anymore." After a while, Marcus spoke again, his voice low and hoarse. "Joanne Ramirez." Come closer, you're about to fall." "Oh." I moved to the side little by little. When the thin ice silk fabric touched my hot skin, my back stiffened and my legs began to sweat. The ambiguous atmosphere in the room was rising rapidly. She didn't dare to move her waist or legs. When she was about to turn over to create some distance between them, Marcus reached out and pulled her into his arms, and the two of them huddled together tightly. My face suddenly became hot. He was wearing a short-sleeved shirt, and his overbearing body heat was continuously transmitted to his body, and sweat was almost oozing out of his forehead. It was a bit uncomfortable to sleep like this, so I turned over to my side, eye to eye. His dark eyes were calm, but they seemed to carry heat when they looked at me. I felt like if I didn't say something, something unspeakable would really happen. I reached out and gently pushed him, tentatively saying, "Well, Marcus, can we sleep in separate rooms now? I have a bad sleeping posture, and I like to get up at night, so I might disturb you at night." There was silence for a long time, and then a man's voice sounded in my ears. Okay, I'll go to the guest room to sleep. I was stunned. You agreed so quickly? Marcus, you're not mad, are you? He laughed and shook his head. He breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Marcus softened his voice. Joanne, we are indeed getting married in a hurry. You still have a period of adjustment. I respect your choice, but I hope you won't make me wait too long. He got up from the bed, opened the closet, took out a new set of bedding, and went into the guest room. I dreamed at night that Marcus, and I rolled from one end of the bed to the other. It felt so real that my face was still hot when I woke up in the morning. I scratched my hair, wondering why I had such a dream. 3. Marcus knocked on the door. Joanne, breakfast is ready. I have no appetite in the summer, and don't eat breakfast in the morning. But when I saw the sesame paste noodles, scallion pancakes, and mung bean porridge on the table, I suddenly felt my appetite open. Marcus, what time did you get up in the morning to do this? 6 o'clock. At this time, I was lying in bed and sleeping soundly. My face was slightly flushed, and I felt a little embarrassed. Pick up the spoon and prepare to add sugar to the porridge. He brought a glass of water first. Don't rush to eat. Drink a glass of warm water. It's good for your health. I looked up at him. Only then did I notice that his hair was wet. His face was a little red. He was wearing sports shorts and a short-sleeved shirt, and his chest was soaked with sweat. You can vaguely see the lines under the clothes. He is muscular, but he doesn't look bloated, and he is even well-proportioned. Did you go jogging just now? He nodded. Yes. You eat first. I smell of sweat, so I'm going to take a shower first. There is no harm without comparison. Compared to Marcus, I'm just too lazy. I decided that I would cook tonight, and I couldn't let him do it anymore. I went to the supermarket after get off work, bought some vegetables, and asked Marcus' mother what kind of vegetables he liked to eat. When I passed by the frozen section, I happened to see the ice cream was on sale and half price. Put 6 buckets in the shopping cart. When I got home, it was already dark outside, and I was the only one left at home. The food was ready, but Marcus hadn't come back yet. I looked up at the clock and saw that he should be back from get off work by now. Just as I was about to call, the phone rang. Joanne, I have to work overtime tonight, so I might be home a little late. Okay, have you eaten yet? I'm busy right now. I'll go to the cafeteria to finish it later. Go to bed early, don't wait for me, and remember to close the door. Marcus, he heard someone calling him, and after a few words, the phone was hung up. I took a look at the steaming beef, lotus root and pork ribs soup on the table, and went to the kitchen to get a thermos bucket to put the food in. I took a taxi to their criminal police team. When the guard asked who I was, I said it was Marcus' wife. When I said the last 2 words, I felt a little uncomfortable and ashamed. When the guard heard this, his eyes lit up, and he led me in enthusiastically. When I saw him, he was looking at the Zhongjuan, with a cigarette in his mouth and a frown on his face. I narrowed my eyes slightly. This was the first time I saw Marcus smoking. Before this, I didn't smell any cigarette smoke on him, and thought he didn't smoke. Marcus was a little surprised when he saw me. After he realized what was happening, he held the cigarette butt, took a deep puff, threw it into the ashtray, trotted out, took off his coat and put it on my shoulders. His eyes are deep, with a smile hidden in them. Someone around started to make a noise. Marcus, who is this? The guard smiled and said, This is your Marcus' wife. Marcus is getting married. When will he invite us to the wedding? Come and see, my sister-in-law is here to bring food to Marcus. It was my first time in their criminal police team, and I was a little nervous. A group of young men who were training nearby greeted this place, calling her sister-in-law one by one, and each one was more lively than the other. His face turned red from the noise. Marcus smiled faintly and said, Thank you, Uncle Hughes. We just got the marriage certificate a while ago, but haven't had the wedding yet. When we have it, I'll invite you to the wedding. The guard smiled and left, allowing us to reunite a little longer. Marcus smiled and said, There are watermelons in the house. I just picked them when I went to the countryside to do some work this afternoon. They are very sweet. I raised the thermos in my hand and smiled. I just cooked 2 dishes and brought them to you. Entering the house, Marcus closed the door. He took out a watermelon from the bucket, wiped the water on the outside with a rag, quickly cut the watermelon into 2 halves, and inserted a spoon on top. Those dark eyes stared at me, refusing to move away. I felt a little embarrassed by his gaze, so I started to talk about something. This watermelon is too big. I can't finish it all. If you can't finish it, leave it here and I'll eat it later. My face turned slightly red. From childhood to adulthood, my father was the only one who was willing to eat what I left over. Now that a second man appeared, it felt a little strange. Eat quickly. Food doesn't taste good if it's been sitting out for too long. Have you got a meal yet? I shook my head. After the meal was done, I was so impatient to have it served that I didn't have time to eat. I'll eat later when I get back. Taking into account that he trains every day and has developed the habit of eating a lot, I served him more food. He took out a pair of disposable chopsticks from the drawer and handed them to me. Let's eat together. Marcus put a piece of beef in my bowl and said, "Eat more. Your waist is too thin." His words were so shocking that I choked. Marcus's mother said he prefers spicy food, so she added more peppercorns when cooking. Now I'm choked and feel very uncomfortable. His face turned red from coughing, and sweat appeared on his forehead. Marcus hurriedly stood up and patted my back to calm me down. Drink some water. I held the cup and gulped down the drink. I finally calmed down and went to see Marcus. His brows were furrowed, his expression serious, and he looked 100 times more ferocious than usual. I can't eat spicy food, so don't put so much chili in your dishes. I felt a little aggrieved. It's because you like spicy food. It's because of your nonsense that I got choked. He said nothing, opened the door and went out. Is this considered a quarrel? Watching his back disappear into the darkness through the window, I felt an indescribable sense of loss in my heart. 8 minutes later, Marcus came back with a bag filled with various candies, peeling a lemon-flavored candy, as if nothing had happened. Open your mouth. The sweet and sour fructose melted in my mouth, and it didn't seem as spicy as before. Marcus asked gently, "How are you? Are you feeling better?" I nodded. "Don't eat this meal. I'll make it for you in the evening when I get home." I misunderstood him and feel a little embarrassed. "No, there's no spicy food in the lotus root soup. I can eat it with rice." "Well, I'll eat the spicy boiled beef, and you drink all the soup. Wait for me for a moment, and we'll go home together when we're done." Marcus ate quickly, finishing in 5 minutes, and sat in front of the computer with a focused look. I don't like having people around me when I'm working alone, so while Marcus was looking at the files, I stood up and walked around outside. I met his colleague on the way. He was tall, handsome and very enthusiastic. "Sister-in-law, let's add each other on WeChat. I'll add you to our family group." Sister-in-law, our Marcus didn't have a girlfriend before. The director arranged a blind date for him, but the girl thought he was too fierce and busy with work. Dean speaks very humorously and can make people laugh with just a few words. "Joanne, it's time to go." Marcus stood in the back, tall and straight, carrying a briefcase and a thermos. "Goodbye, sister-in-law." I smiled and waved at Dean. 4. Marcus was driving. "Is Dean on your team?" "Yes. He's quite handsome. Does he have a girlfriend?" The car stopped steadily at the red light ahead. Marcus turned his head and squinted his eyes, his tone somewhat dangerous. "Why do you ask? What's on your mind?" "Dean is quite handsome, has a good figure, and speaks humorously. I want to introduce him to Qin Qing." "He doesn't have a girlfriend." After getting out of the car, Marcus walked around to the other side, opened the door, and took me home, holding my hand. When I left, the pot had not been washed, and the dishes on the table were cold. "You go and rest, I'll clean up the kitchen. You worked a full day and worked overtime at night. You also worked a whole day and came home to cook dinner at night." Marcus cleaned the dishes quickly and methodically. I have been to Marcus's home several times. There is an aunt at home, so he should not have to do the housework normally. I thought he was a spoiled rich boy, but his actual image did not match my imagination. He cooks and does housework better than me. There were no good TV shows to watch at this time, so I put on my pajamas and went to take a shower. When I was getting dressed, I lost my balance and fell heavily. Hiss. Take a breath of cold air. I lifted up my trouser legs and saw that they were red and swollen, which was shocking to look at. But fortunately there was no bleeding. I often bump into things, but I don't take them seriously. He limped out the door and happened to meet Marcus' eyes, who was holding a change of clothes in his hands. Shirtless. I'm done, you can go wash now. He looked straight at me and asked softly, Did you fall? How do you know? I heard some noise. Marcus looked down. Show me your legs. I shook my head. It's nothing serious, no need to look. Marcus stood in front of me in silence, as if to say, If you don't show me, I won't let you leave. I stretched out my left leg, lifted my pants, and accidentally rubbed the wound. Take a breath of cold air. Marcus crouched down, examining the wound. He frowned. Does it hurt? It's okay, just bear with it and it will pass. Sit on the sofa. I'll apply medicine for you. Can you walk? Do you want me to carry you? He was too nervous just for these few steps. I can walk on my own. He brought the medicine box and took out cotton swabs and iodine. While applying the medicine, I was bored and secretly observed his hands. He has beautiful hands, with long fingers and neatly trimmed nails. Before we got married, I heard from Marcus's mother that he plays the piano very well. It will be painful to disinfect, just bear with it. Before I could react, iodine was poured on the wound, causing excruciating pain. I subconsciously wanted to kick, but my calf was suddenly grabbed by him. Marcus' expression was serious. Joanne, don't move. Be careful not to touch the wound. There is a thin layer of callus on the palm of my hand, which feels itchy when I touch it. My whole body is stiff and I dare not even breathe. His arms are very thick, almost as long as my calves, and look very powerful. What I thought came out of my mouth. Marcus, your arms are so thick. He raised his head and stared at me with deep eyes. I learned this through regular training. Marcus breathed a sigh of relief, after making sure there were no other injuries. There were a few finger marks on the white and soft calf, probably left by Marcus just now. He went into the kitchen, brought back a glass of milk, and went into the bathroom with his pajamas. My mother called and asked me how my married life was going. I just said a few pleasant words to get away with it. Joanne, when are you guys free to come back for dinner? The Dragon Boat Festival is coming soon, and Mom made a lot of rice dumplings. I made a few extra ones in the salted egg yolk flavor you like. I'll ask Marcus when he's free. I stood up and walked to the bathroom door. When are you free? My mom wants us to go home for dinner. There was no sound inside. Is it because the sound of the water is too loud and I can't hear clearly? I called out again. Marcus, when are you free? My mom wants us to go home. A man's rough voice came from inside. Sunday. I didn't think much about it, and told my mom I would go back on Friday. The bathroom door opened, and he was only wearing a pair of shorts, revealing his lean waist and well-defined muscles. His hair was wet, with water droplets sliding down the sides of his ears and gathering into a drop along his clear jawline. I stole a glance, and when Marcus looked over, I quickly looked away, pretending to be watching TV as if nothing had happened. I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. What a nice figure. 5. On weekends, I don't have to go to early classes, so I stay in bed and sleep a little longer. Marcus knocked on the door. Joanne, my tie is in the closet. Can you come in for a moment? He turned over and shouted to the door. Come in. The door was gently pushed open. I opened my eyes drowsily and was instantly awakened by Marcus's handsomeness. Marcus usually dresses casually, but today he is wearing a suit with his shirt pressed straight and tucked into his belt. His hair is combed up in front of his forehead. He has deep eyebrows and eyes, and is tall and straight. He is just like the paper husband in the novel. Slightly stunned, when I looked into his eyes, I could clearly feel my own heartbeat. This is so handsome. Such a handsome man is actually my husband. It's so unreal. Noticing my infatuated gaze, Marcus raised his eyebrows and smiled faintly. Are you stupid? Do you want to sleep a little longer? I shook my head and rolled over on the bed. Marcus, can you wear this every day from now on? It's so cool. No, only wear it like this in front of me. She picked out a moonlight-colored dress from the closet, which made her skin look very fair, and took out a necklace from the jewelry box. This was bought by Marcus, but he has never worn it since he bought it. I don't know much about jewelry, but it looked very delicate and beautiful. I searched online and found out it cost about 50,000 or 60,000 yuan. Marcus pushed the door open with a watch in his hand. His eyes swept over me silently, his Adam's apple rolled, and his voice was a little hoarse. Can I kiss you? The mirror is right in front of me, and I can see my red face from the side. The voice trembled. Okay. Marcus came up to me, held my face, and placed a cool kiss on my forehead. I was stunned. Why was the kiss on the forehead? But I'm too embarrassed to bring it up. Marcus gently pinched my earlobe and whispered, "Put on this watch." I still recognize the watch. It's from Vacheron Constantin. When did you buy it? I saw it while shopping the other day and bought it as a wedding present for you. After get off work that day, we made an appointment to go to the movies together. He arrived before me, so he must have bought it at that time. The jewelry I wear combined is worth more than 2 years' salary for me. I started thinking about what gift I should give Marcus next time. I didn't even give you a wedding present. The best gift is not to make me wait too long. Ah, put your hand over here, I'll put it on for you. When I was buckling the watch strap, I slowly realized what he meant, and my face turned red. This guy looks serious and cold, but he is better than anyone else at acting like a gangster. 6. I got out of the car and opened the trunk. I was so surprised to see it was full of things. There are dozens of items of various sizes, including cigarettes, alcohol, tea, fruit, and health products. The last time they were so surprised was when Marcus brought his entire family to propose marriage, and he carried almost a truckload of stuff. There was no room for them at home, so my mother sent a lot of them to my uncle and grandmother's homes in the countryside. Some people didn't know whether to laugh or cry. We haven't even finished the food from last time. Why are you buying so much again? There's almost no room at home. Marcus ruffled my hair and explained, "This is courtesy. These are the things that should be bought." My mother became more and more satisfied with her son-in-law Marcus. When we got home, she let him rest and didn't ask him to do anything. At noon, in order to cater to his taste, spicy food was added to several dishes. After dinner, Marcus rushed to wash the dishes. My dad sat on the sofa, steady as a rock. My mother kicked him in disgust and said, "What are you doing sitting here? Go wash the dishes." "Mom, I'll wash the dishes. You guys take a rest." Marcus carried the plate into the kitchen, showing enthusiasm. After washing the dishes, she brought a plate of cut fruit, and my mother nodded repeatedly with satisfaction. Marcus is really caring. Marcus looks serious and not good at speaking, but he is very good at chatting with elders. Just a few words from him made my mother laugh. The two of them were chatting aside, and I searched online, what gifts to give to boys. As we chatted, the topic turned to when to hold the wedding, and when to have children. Hearing this, I blushed silently and felt a little uncomfortable. He stood up and yawned. "I'm going to sleep." I fell asleep quickly lying on the familiar and soft bed. I touched something hard in a daze, and it felt pretty good. A man's hoarse voice came from above my head. "Joanne, don't move." I was slightly stunned. There was a handsome face sleeping next to me. His hair was slightly messy. I lifted his clothes and placed my hands on his abdominal muscles. I looked down at myself and found that I was not feeling much better. In the summer, she only covered herself with a thin blanket. Because it was too hot, she kicked it aside. Her skirt had somehow moved to her belly, revealing her shorts. There is no hope in life. While Marcus was still asleep, she carefully pulled her skirt down. After finishing all this, my heart started to go haywire. When did he come in? Did you see me exposed? I raised my eyes. I don't know when he woke up. He looked at me with a faint gaze, with a hint of unknown meaning. So he saw everything I did just now. "Marcus, did you just see everything?" Marcus said nothing, lowered his eyes, raised his hand and gently pushed the loose hair behind my ears. The atmosphere changed quietly. "Joanne, can you kiss?" She looked at him with confused eyes and shook her head. He chuckled and looked at me deeply. "I'll teach you." Covering his cold lips, he couldn't help but tremble slightly. "Joanne, get some air." Once he got the hang of it, Marcus grabbed my shoulders and deepened the kiss. When it was over, my heart was pounding and I collapsed into his arms. 7. I'm not going back tonight. After dinner, my mother asked me to take Marcus for a walk. There is an artificial lake nearby, and I plan to take a walk there. I met familiar neighbors on the way. Joanne, this is your boyfriend. Yes, he is my husband. The neighbor was a little surprised. My husband is so handsome. After exchanging a few words with the neighbors, he continued walking forward with Marcus. When I came back, I was too tired to walk. Marcus was still acting like nothing had happened. You haven't exercised enough. Would you like me to take you jogging in the morning? I quickly waved my hand and refused. No. I was sweating and feeling sticky, so I squatted down and searched for my pajamas in the drawer, but I couldn't find them after searching for a long time. And the drawer was in a mess. Mom, where are my pajamas? Did you put them away? I didn't touch it. It's in the drawer. Look for it yourself. I flipped through it for a long time without seeing anything, and I became a little impatient. Tell me what kind it is and I'll find it. It's pink, with a strawberry cartoon on the chest. I used to like that set of pajamas very much. They looked very cute when I wore them. Did you find it? Marcus shook his head. Forget it. The more you look for it, the harder it is to find. Almost all of my summer clothes were moved to Marcus's place, leaving only my high school uniform and short-sleeved shirts, as well as my winter clothes. Between school uniform and short-sleeved shirt, I chose short-sleeved shirt. The short sleeves are a little big and can barely cover the thighs. The room had its own private bathroom. Marcus sat on the bed reading my comic book while I went into the bathroom with my clothes. When he came out, he was looking for other books. Have you finished reading the comic book? His eyes darkened. Well, is there a next one? I nodded. Yes. However, I hid them in a rather deep place. I put all the magazines and comics in a box. I was afraid that my parents would find them, so I secretly hid the box under the bed. The box was located inside, so I squatted down and reached out to grab it. Feeling a slight chill from behind, he reached out and tugged at the hem of his clothes. You come and fish it out, hiss. When I stood up, I accidentally hit my head on the edge of the bed. Does it hurt? Wow, is Mercury retrograde lately? I keep getting hurt. Show me. He turned my body towards me, and my eyes fell on his neck. The collar of his shirt was slightly open, his Adam's apple was slightly protruding, and the blue veins were faintly visible. For a moment, I forgot about the headache. It's not serious, just sit there and rest for a while. Marcus pressed me to the edge of the bed, his eyes gradually darkening. Aren't you going to get it? The book is in the box. He looked thoughtful. No, there are more important things to do. I opened my mouth, but before I could react, I felt heat on my lips and his kiss pressed down on me. 8. I recently bought a new scale online because the old one at home was broken. It weighed 8 kilograms. The skirt I wore last year is a bit tight on me now. I felt terrible, and the alarms in my brain started to sound. Marcus, don't make my portion of the dinner tonight. I'm going to lose weight starting today. Marcus reached out and rubbed my waist a few times and concluded, You've gained a little weight, and it feels better. I developed a quick weight loss plan and decided not to eat dinner from now on. Marcus pointed out the problem without mercy. You will gain weight back and gain weight faster. I turned my head away, wanting to cry but unable to. What should I do? He suggested, let's go hiking this weekend. You don't exercise enough. You're usually out of breath after climbing 2 floors. You're usually very busy. Do you have time this week? Yes, I just finished a case a while ago. Marcus is really busy at work. Sometimes he would go out in the middle of the night when he received a case, and you wouldn't be seen for several days at a time. I was so excited the day before departure that I couldn't sleep in bed. This was the first time he and I really went out to play. I heard that things in the scenic area are very expensive, so I packed a lot of snacks and water in my bag. When I was halfway up the mountain, I wanted to throw away the bag on my shoulder. People are almost exhausted. He spoke weakly. Marcus, is it too late to go down the mountain now? Joanne, hold on a little longer, we'll be there soon. I pouted. You just said that. Marcus works out regularly and has a good physique. I was sweating profusely, but he was fine. Come on up, I'll carry you. Forget it, I'll go on my own. There are many people coming and going around. from the elderly in their 50s and 60s to children as young as 5 years old, which has a bad influence on people. By the time I reached the top of the mountain, my throat was so dry it was smoking. Marcus is looking for a vacant lot to set up his tent. I opened my school bag, looked down for water, and touched a small box. I remember not bringing this snack with me when I went out. Could it be that Marcus put it there? When I opened it and saw the small bags inside, my face turned red and my heart beat faster. But tonight someone was bound to be disappointed. Teacher. Looking back, it was the student I was leading in the class. Wayne, are you camping with your parents? The elementary school students were excited to see me. I came here with my uncle. The elementary school student pointed at the man in the distance. He had a slender figure and handsome features. The man walked over here. And the more he looked, the more familiar he looked. It was Harold, the neighbor next door. Somewhat surprised. Are you Wayne's uncle? Harold nodded and ruffled Wayne's hair. I'm his uncle. His parents are on a business trip, so I brought him out for a trip. Teacher, Uncle has made some barbecue. Would you like to have some? I shook my head and refused with a smile. Thank you, Wayne, the teacher brought some food. You came here alone? I shook my head. I came here with my boyfriend. Harold followed my gaze and smiled helplessly. Then I won't bother you anymore. Marcus is very good at hands-on work, and he set up a tent in just over 10 minutes. That was your friend? No, he is the student's parent and our neighbor. Marcus, I want to eat barbecue. When Wayne invited me to have a barbecue just now, I was actually a little greedy. I borrowed a grill from the B&B. The meat has been marinated and can be grilled directly. Let me help you. You go play in the tent. The barbecue smoke is too big. I'll do it. Half an hour later, Marcus brought a plate of grilled kebabs and asked me to come out and eat. I felt full after just a few bites. It was too hot, and I had no appetite for anything. I won't eat anymore. You eat it. He expertly took the skewer I had eaten and took a bite. Marcus, I'm sleepy. Lie down and rest for a while. It's too hot to sleep. He took out a fan from his bag. You sleep, I'll fan you. The fan blew, bringing a hint of coolness. Fell asleep quickly. When I woke up, the sun had already set, and it was pitch black all around. Marcus opened the tent and glanced at me. Awake? I nodded. His short hair was wet and still dripping, and the water rolled down his cold face and hit his chest. He also changed into a new set of clothes. What did you go do? His voice was a little hoarse. There is a lake nearby. I just went swimming. Marcus entered the tent, and an unignorable masculine aura surged over him, lingering around him. I subconsciously dodged to the side. A warm and strong hand wrapped around my waist, pulled me into his arms, and sat me on his lap. He stared at me with his dark, narrow eyes, suppressing his surging emotions, and asked in a serious tone, Joanne, I want to kiss you, can I? My ears suddenly felt hot and burning, and my face was also hot. If you want to kiss me, just kiss me. And you even come to ask me specifically. Blushing, he stammered, yeah. After the kiss, both of them had difficulty breathing. My heart was pounding, and I could hear his heavy breathing, mixed with the sound of his throat rolling. His voice was hoarse. Is it okay? I am having my period. 9. There was a B&B next door, and Marcus booked a room there in advance. As soon as the door opened, he ran straight to the bathroom. After taking a shower, Marcus was standing on the balcony smoking. He was completely hidden in the darkness, with only the cigarette between his fingertips flickering. I sat down and started applying my skincare products. When I turned around, Marcus was standing behind me, playing with his hair with his fingertips. Let me help you blow dry your hair. The hair dryer is in the drawer. As he blew, Marcus' hands began to move dishonestly. The short hair rubbed against the side of the chin, which was a bit prickly. Suddenly, a shrill telephone ring was heard in the living room. Marcus frowned, took a deep breath, and went out to answer the phone. When he came back, his expression was serious, and his dark eyes looked at me with complicated expressions. There is a case. I have to leave now. I was stunned and felt a little reluctant to leave. It was a rare opportunity for me to come out and have fun. Well, go ahead, but drive slowly on the road. Stand up and see him out. He was still standing there, motionless, staring at me silently with a hint of expectation in his eyes. Why aren't you leaving yet? Isn't the mission urgent? When I heard him answer the phone just now, the matter on the other end seemed very urgent. Let me kiss you first. After the kiss, I felt dizzy and could hardly stand. The phone rang again. While he was answering the phone, he stretched out his other hand, hooked my waist, and pulled me into his arms. A teammate called to urge him to do something. Marcus answered the phone reluctantly, and his voice dropped several degrees. It was as if someone was preventing him from eating meat. Hurry up, others are coming to urge us. He buried his head in the crook of my neck and took a deep breath. I'll make it up to you next time I come back. His tone carried a hint of settling a final score. When I entered the room and looked in the mirror, my lips were obviously swollen, and my face was red because I hugged her a little too hard, and my pajamas were a little messy. 10. After Marcus left, I was the only one left at home. It felt lonely and cold. I never had this feeling when I lived alone before. I accidentally had a nightmare at night. In the dream, Marcus was killed while investigating a case. It felt so real that I quickly made a video call to confirm it. I realized it was only 5 o'clock, so he should be resting now. I hung up the video immediately. The next second, the video call came. His eye sockets were a little sunken, and there was a dark beard on his chin. His voice was hoarse. What's wrong? After confirming that he was okay, I felt relieved. But seeing how exhausted he was, my heart ached involuntarily. Nothing, I just wanted to see you. When did you fall asleep? Did I disturb you? I just went to bed. Then go to sleep. I'm hanging up. Joanne, are you having a nightmare? He is very insightful and can see through my thoughts at a glance. He lowered his eyes and said in a guilty tone, I'm sorry. It's okay, go to sleep, I won't disturb you. Don't hang up. I can sleep more peacefully with you next to me. I got out of bed and went to the bathroom, and I could hear a man's even breathing in the video. After listening for a while, I fell asleep too. When I woke up in the morning, the video call had been hung up. Marcus posted some of his recent photos and videos. Look at it when you miss me. I clicked on it and saw a photo of him shirtless. Marcus had a very good figure, 1.85 meters tall, with well-proportioned muscles. It makes one's face hot. I chose the most handsome photo as my screensaver. This case took a long time to handle, and it lasted for half a month. He is busy with work and has to squeeze out the time to make phone calls from his rest time. When I got off work on Thursday, it was raining heavily outside. Although it was daytime, the sky was gray and the air was humid. When I went out in the morning, I looked at the weather forecast, and it was going to rain today. So I took an umbrella with me when I went out. Now it seems like it's raining so heavily that an umbrella is useless. I frowned and prepared to take a taxi home. The driver received the order and canceled it, telling me that there was traffic jam and he couldn't get through. Mr. Ramirez, do you want to take my uncle's car? My uncle drove here today. Looking down, little Wayne had candy in his mouth, and his other hand was held by someone. Harold, get in the car, it's on our way. Sorry to trouble you. After getting in the car, Harold handed over a bag of KFC from the front, and the little guy's eyes lit up. Thank you, Uncle. I hope you can find a girlfriend soon. Harold laughed uncontrollably. I was a little surprised. You are so good, but you don't have a girlfriend? He was driving ahead, his eyes focused. I just haven't found the right one yet. Wayne took out an egg tart from the box and handed it to me. Teacher, give it to me. It's still hot. Wayne was very enthusiastic and kept sharing with me, which made me feel a little embarrassed. A man who eats someone's food is soft-hearted, and a man who takes someone's favor is thankless. Besides, Harold has helped me several times before. When I got home, I turned on the TV and watched TV while making the cake. I just heard Wayne mention that today is his birthday. I made a chocolate cake and sent it to them as a way of repaying their favor. Wayne and Harold were very welcoming and invited me to sit down and have dinner with them. Teacher, Uncle also ordered pizza. Please sit down and help us eat some. Yeah, if you can't finish it, it will be wasted. Halfway through the meal, the phone rang. I looked over and it was Marcus. Hello. Baby, where are you? I'm next door. There was a pause. You're back? I stood up and apologized to Harold. My husband will be home soon. He nodded. Well, go back, thank you for the cake. Teacher, the cake you made is so delicious. I stroked his hair and smiled. I opened the door, and there was no one in the living room. There was a sound of water dripping from the bathroom. He must be taking a shower. Marcus was away, and we didn't buy much groceries, so there were only some eggs left at home. I went into the kitchen, cooked a bowl of noodles, fried 3 eggs, and put a small plate of chili peppers. When he came out, he was standing in the living room, wearing a black t-shirt and black home pants. The muscular lines on his shoulders and back were faintly visible, making him look tall, slender, and taut. Dark eyes stared at me. Her face felt a little hot when he looked at her, so she lowered her eyes and said softly, "Let's eat." He sat down and ate the noodles with big mouthfuls. I don't know if it's my illusion, but Marcus seems a little unhappy. I have some rough guesses as to why. It was raining today, so Harold went to pick up his nephew and sent me back on the way. He has helped me a lot. I just made a cake and sent it to him. Today is his nephew's birthday, so I'm returning the favor. I told him everything. He raised his eyes and put down his chopsticks. He didn't look unhappy as I had imagined, but rather one with an apologetic look. I'm sorry, Joanne. Due to the nature of my work, I can't spend too much time with you. For example, it's raining heavily today, so I can't pick you up. I nodded. I understand. Not wanting to continue talking about this, I changed the subject. The balcony light is broken and has never been repaired. I'll go downstairs and buy a new light bulb later. Go take a shower and be careful not to catch a cold. I'll wash the dishes. After taking a bath, I felt much more comfortable. I reached out to take my pajamas, but found they were empty after a few touches. I forgot to bring my pajamas. Marcus, I forgot to bring my pajamas. Can you get them for me? I called out several times, but no one responded. He must have gone downstairs to buy a light bulb. Anyway, I was the only one left in the room, so I just came out wrapped in a bath towel. When they walked into the living room, the door was unlocked and their eyes met. Both of them were stunned. He ran straight to the bedroom and locked it. After changing into my pajamas, I was too lazy to move and just lay on the bed and browsed my phone. The embarrassing incident that just happened was completely forgotten. There was a knock on the door. Joanne, I'm here to bring you milk. Oh, just open the door. You locked the door. I jumped out of bed, opened the door, and gulped down the milk. As usual, I said good night to him and prepared to close the door. The door was blocked. I was stunned. What's the matter? His Adam's apple rolled and his voice became hoarse. The accounts have not been settled yet. He took a step forward, pressed his hot palm against my waist, and stared at me with deep eyes. Is it time to round up our house? The body couldn't help but tremble. Marcus took advantage of the opportunity, and when I was off guard, he picked me up and pushed me onto the bed. The kiss was more passionate than ever before. 3 hours later, his hair was a little wet and his handsome face had a light blush. Are you feeling uncomfortable? When their eyes met, they felt a little awkward and shy. I closed my eyes tightly and buried my head in the quilt. The sheets were already wet, so Marcus simply pulled the covers back. You're sweating from the heat. Are your legs still sore? Do you want me to carry you to take a shower? She glared at him, then held her waist and went into the bathroom. In fact, it wasn't as painful as I imagined, but I felt a little uncomfortable during the process, even though Marcus was very restrained. When I came out, the bed sheets had been changed to new ones, and the windows were open to get rid of the smell. I felt a little tired, so I fell on the bed and fell asleep. The next morning, I was woken up by the heat. I was sweating and my pajamas were wet and sticky to my body. A man's sleepy and hoarse voice came from above my head. My mind went blank and I held my breath. Aren't you going for a run? Let's try a different approach today. An hour later, the car arrived at the campus gate. I opened the door and was about to get off the bus. Don't forget to take breakfast. Looking back, the man next to me looked refreshed, humming a song, and was obviously in a good mood. I'll pick you up this afternoon. In the 8th month after marriage, my period still hadn't come. I went to the drugstore and bought a test strip. I took the test 10 times, and it showed 2 lines every time. The only time I didn't take any measures was last month, when I got home from my wedding. I was so exhausted that I didn't even bother to take a shower. On the contrary, Marcus was extremely excited and kissed and hugged her. I pushed him. I'm too tired and don't want to move. You don't have to move. No way, just that one time. In the evening, Marcus came home from get off work and shouted into the bedroom, "Baby, I bought you egg tarts." I buried my head in the pillow and didn't want to pay attention to him at the moment. He pushed open the door a little confused. "What's wrong?" The voice was muffled. "Marcus, I think I'm pregnant." He was stunned for a moment, then suddenly laughed. The test results came out and I was really pregnant. At night, I was lying in bed and felt something strange. There was a small bean sprout in my stomach. Since becoming pregnant, Marcus has been leaving get off work earlier than ever before. He usually cooks all the meals, but he still has to go out to work on cases occasionally. Marcus's father was worried, so he arranged for an aunt to come to the house to take care of his daily life. The baby was born safely during the spring festival. Named Gerald Perry, Marcus successfully became a dad.